I used to think my life was quiet, safe. I was never the dramatic one, never the one to make waves. I married young, trusted easily, and believed that family meant loyalty. My name is Vanessa Carter, and I'm about to tell you how my husband and his mother took everything from me, my credit, my dignity, and how I got it all back. It started, as most betrayals do, with a lie so small I almost didn't notice it. We'd been married 10 years. I worked part-time at the community library while raising our son, Ethan. Brian, my husband, was always busy. He worked in real estate with his mother, Judith, who'd never liked me. Judith was the type of woman who smiled like she was sizing you up. She called me mousy, told Brian I lacked ambition, but Brian always defended me, or so I thought. Then the calls started. Credit card companies, banks, loan collectors asking for me, asking why I hadn't made my $40,000 loan payment. I thought it was a mistake. I laughed nervously. I've never taken out a loan. They didn't laugh. I pulled my credit report. There it was, a business loan in my name, approved with my social security number, my signature, and my email address. Except I never signed anything. And the business? A property staging company, the same one Brian and Judith had mentioned, starting as a family side project. My stomach dropped. I confronted Brian that night. "Honey," he said, calmly stirring his tea, "Judith needed a name to file under while we set things up. You know how much red tape there is." I stared at him. "You used my name without asking me?" "It was temporary," he said. "You're my wife. We're a team, aren't we?" Judith chimed in later with a smirk. "Vanessa, you never understood business. You'd just mess it up if we asked." That was the first time I truly saw her venom up close. Over the next few weeks, the calls worsened. Late notices, threats to garnish wages, even my library paycheck was frozen. I started losing sleep. I cried in the shower so Ethan wouldn't hear. I begged Brian to help. "You're overreacting," he said. "I'll talk to them. You don't understand how these things work." I went to the police. They told me it wasn't identity theft because it was a spouse. Apparently, if you're married, someone can legally sign on your behalf under assumed consent, unless you press charges. But pressing charges meant blowing up my marriage, my son's stability. I wasn't ready for that, not yet. Judith came over one day while Brian was out. She brought Ethan a box of Legos and sat on my couch like she owned it. "You're not built for the real world," she said, her voice calm but cold. "Brian needs a wife who supports the business, not one who drags it down." I clenched my fists. "You stole my name. You ruined my credit. You humiliated me." She stood, smoothed her designer blouse. "We fixed what was broken. You just never realized it was you." She left without another word. That night I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. But that night was also the start of something new, something burning in me. I would not let them win. I started documenting everything, emails, texts, statements. I hired a financial advisor with what little I had left in savings. She helped me understand exactly what they had done, how they moved money, how they funneled it through shell accounts, all in my name. I was the guaranteed liability. If anything failed, I'd take the fall. Brian and Judith would walk away clean. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I didn't know how yet. But I would get everything back. One day I got a letter from the IRS. They were auditing the loan. Apparently, Brian and Judith had also listed me as the sole proprietor on tax documents. My name, my debt, my risk. And that was when I stopped being afraid. They wanted to turn me into a scapegoat, but instead, they woke up the storm. The IRS audit turned out to be my golden ticket. Not because it cleared me, it didn't, but because it forced Brian and Judith to scramble. I watched them carefully. Judith started showing up less, sending terse emails to Brian. Brian was nervous, making phone calls in hushed tones, pacing the backyard. So I leaned in. I opened a separate bank account under my maiden name, Vanessa Lowell, and started shifting what little money I had there. I changed passwords, created backup email accounts, and set up alerts for every financial move made in my name. Judith always underestimated me, and Brian, he never really knew me. One rainy Thursday, Brian said he was going to a meeting about the audit. I followed him. I didn't even feel guilty. I parked across the street from the cafe where he met her, Renee Phillips, their financial consultant, or so I thought. I watched through the glass as they sat close, laughing in low voices. At one point, he touched her hand. I snapped photos, every angle, every interaction. Then I went home, poured a glass of wine, and cried. Not for him, not even for me, but for Ethan. Because when this was over, I knew our lives would never look the same. I couldn't sleep that night. So I did what I'd been avoiding for weeks. I went through Brian's desk, found a folder labeled Transition Plan. Inside were printed documents from 3 months before the loan was filed. Plans to sell our house, without my name on any of it. Plans to rebrand the business in his name, and a draft of a prenup addendum, forged, showing I had no claim to assets in case of divorce. He was preparing to leave me all along. I didn't sleep that night, but I woke up clear-headed. It was time to hit back. I contacted an attorney, a former client from the library now working in financial crimes. She agreed to help me pro bono. Together, we gathered everything. Photos from the cafe, the audit documents, the forged prenup, records of the shell companies tied to Judith's maiden name, my original loan signature versus the falsified one. Then we submitted a formal complaint to the State Fraud Division. The best part? They didn't even know I was coming for them. While Brian and Judith thought they were getting away clean, I scheduled a meeting with their business partner. Someone I'd only met once at a holiday party. I showed him everything. He was horrified. Turns out he had no idea the loan was in my name. No idea the company was being used as a front for shady real estate flips. He offered to testify, to provide internal emails, to hand over financial records that would prove my case. The night before everything blew up, I sat at the edge of Ethan's bed and watched him sleep. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. He didn't know his father was a liar, that his grandmother saw me as disposable, that I was about to dismantle their world. But he would. And I would make sure he knew the truth gently, carefully one day when he was ready. It happened fast. They showed up at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. 2 officers, plain clothes, quiet, respectful, as they placed Brian in cuffs for financial fraud, tax evasion, and forgery. Judith came screeching into the driveway, demanding answers. I stood there at the doorway. She rushed toward me. "You did this. You ruined him." I didn't flinch. "No, Judith. You ruined yourselves. I just made sure someone finally noticed." The house was put under investigation. Judith's assets were frozen, Brian's accounts were seized. The shell company dissolved. The court validated everything I submitted. My credit was cleared. The loan? Officially declared fraudulent. But the real moment of peace came in court, when Brian tried to speak. He looked at me, tried to explain. Vanessa, I never wanted to hurt you. And I finally said the thing I'd been holding in for years. No, Brian, you just didn't care if you did. You can survive heartbreak. You can recover from betrayal. But rising from the ashes? That takes something deeper. And I had it. After the court hearings, the silence in the house was deafening. No Brian, no Judith, just me and Ethan, and the echo of everything I thought we were. But for the first time, that silence wasn't terrifying. It was peaceful. I didn't have to explain myself, didn't have to walk on eggshells. I could breathe again. Ethan was young but not naive. He asked why Dad wasn't coming home. I sat him down one evening with his favorite puzzle in front of us. The one with the space shuttle and stars. Your dad made some choices that hurt a lot of people, I said, but you didn't do anything wrong, and I will always protect you. He didn't cry. He just nodded. Are we going to be okay? I smiled. Yes, baby, we're going to be better than okay. 3 weeks later, I got an unexpected call. It was from Brian's sister, Angela. We'd only met a few times. Judith had made it clear I wasn't part of the real family. Angela apologized. I always suspected something was off, but I didn't know they'd go this far. She offered to help. Angela was a financial consultant in another state. She walked me through what I needed to do to rebuild. How to open credit in new ways, how to apply for restitution, how to prepare for long-term recovery. And she became a friend, the first I'd had in a while. Brian started writing me from prison. The first was filled with regret, the second, anger, the third, a strange mix of love and blame. I didn't respond, but I kept them, not because I wanted them, but because one day when Ethan asked, I'd be able to show him the truth, in his father's own words. Let the man speak for himself. Judith tried to sue me. Yes, the woman who helped commit fraud in my name had the audacity to file a civil suit, claiming defamation and emotional damages. It didn't last. Her claim was thrown out in a week. The judge even reprimanded her in court for wasting time. But she left a voicemail that still chills me. You'll never be anything without this family. I deleted it, and then I smiled, because I was finally becoming someone without them. I sold the house, started fresh, a smaller place near a public school Ethan loved. No picket fence, no designer kitchen. But peace. That came standard. I went back to school and studied nonprofit management. I'd spent so long helping others tell their stories. Now I wanted to help women like me, betrayed, blindsided, rebuilding. I founded a small foundation, Second Thread, for women recovering from financial abuse and partner fraud. First month, 5 members. By the end of the year, over 200. One evening after a fundraiser, I got an anonymous email. Attached was a photo, Brian, from the prison library, working, and beside him, Judith, visiting. I stared at the image for a long time. It didn't hurt, not anymore. It just confirmed what I always knew. Some people would rather rot together than rise alone. And me? I was rising. The night Ethan turned 12, I gave him a letter. I'd written it the year everything fell apart. You will hear stories about your dad. You may even remember him as someone kind. That's okay. Hold those memories, but also know that your mother fought to protect you. That love doesn't look like lies and family doesn't come with conditions. You are not the sum of their mistakes. You are the beginning of something better. He read it twice, didn't say anything. Then he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. They faked alone in my name, but I wrote the ending, and I chose peace. 2 years after it all happened, I was invited to speak at a local women's justice conference. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't a public speaker. I wasn't anyone important. But Angela reminded me, "You lived it. That's more than enough." So I said yes. That day I stood at the podium. My palms were sweating. The lights were hot. But when I looked into the audience, saw faces of women just like me, I found my voice. My name is Vanessa Carter. I used to think betrayal was something dramatic, something that came with shouting matches and slammed doors. But sometimes it comes quietly, with forged documents, with sweet words and silent sabotage. My husband and mother-in-law didn't break me overnight. They chipped away at me piece by piece until I didn't recognize my own reflection. But here's the thing about being broken: you get to rebuild, and this time, I chose every brick. The applause that followed, it wasn't loud, it was long, and in that moment I didn't feel like a victim, I felt heard. After the event, a woman approached me. She looked familiar. "You don't know me," she said, "but I was in prison with Judith." My breath caught. "She talked about you a lot," she added. "Always angry, always blaming. But deep down, I think she envied you." She handed me a small envelope. Inside, a single photo. Judith, sitting alone in the prison yard. No makeup, no pearls, just a woman with a shadow of her former self. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. And that was progress. Months later, I was contacted by the parole board. Brian had requested early release. They asked if I wanted to submit a statement. I did, but I didn't write pages of bitterness. I wrote the truth. He made a choice, more than once. He chose lies over love, control over care. And he didn't just betray me. He endangered our son's future. Whether or not he leaves prison is not my concern, but Ethan and I have built something real in his absence. Please don't let him tear it down again. Brian's parole was denied. When Ethan turned 16, he got into a youth leadership program for teens of formerly incarcerated parents. He gave a speech, too. My mom showed me that love isn't about money or houses or appearances. It's about safety, about truth. And she taught me that we can still win, even when we lose everything. I cried like a child in the back row. A few weeks after that event, I received an email from a publishing agent. They'd seen a recording of my conference talk. "Have you ever considered writing your story?" At first, I laughed out loud. Me? A writer? But then I thought back to all the nights I sat journaling my pain, all the times I whispered stories to myself just to survive. I said yes. And 6 months later, I was holding a galley copy of my memoir, signed without consent, A Mother's Fight for Her Name Back. Right before the book went to print, I got one last letter. From Judith. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged. I was wrong, it began. But I thought I was saving my son from ruin. I see now I ruined him instead. There was no apology, not really. Just a broken woman realizing she could no longer control the narrative. I didn't write back. The book was my response. Now I wake up to quiet mornings, to pancakes with Ethan, to walks in the park, to sunlight pouring through curtains I chose. Not ones Judith gifted, not ones Brian picked out. Mine. Ethan's laughter is louder now. My shoulders sit lower. Sometimes I still get startled by sudden noises, still double-check the locks. But healing isn't perfect, it's just honest. They faked a loan in my name, turned my life into a battleground of signatures and shame. But I turned their lie into my legacy, and I'm not done yet. Because for every woman out there silently watching her world fall apart, I want her to know, you are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not alone.